welcome to the Halloween episode of Hanging Heavy or Hanging Dead, man. Let's get into these stories.
Branches in the wind.
Finally, I'm home. After working late night, I finally finished a project that my boss pushed on me. It was all worth it though, because I had a great day ahead of me. The part I was most excited for though was seeing my son. I finally won the custody battle against my ex-wife, so now I actually get to see him. I fixed up my old spare bedroom. Although it looked bland in all white, I figured we'd have some spare time later on. We could make some changes, whatever he wanted. I lumbered up the stairs, and when he finally heard I was here, he quickly called me into his room.
Daddy, I can't sleep. There's a monster in the window.
Monsters, huh? That's original for a kid. Oh, don't worry about that. It's just the tree branches blowing against the wind. See? I pointed and showed him the branch tapping against the window pane. He trusted me enough to calm himself down, and I kissed him goodnight. Finally, time for sleep. I could hardly even see straight at this point. I walked across the hallway and collapsed into my bed. I had too much on my plate to be dealing with monsters. I had to go with him to school the next day to get him to sign up in our district. I had to buy him school clothes. I couldn't even think straight. That's when I heard him calling again. Man, I love this kid and all, but I needed some sleep.
Daddy, the monster, it's back again.
He shrieked. I looked to the window. Nope, nothing but the tree branches. I walked over, and to prove it to him, I opened the window and turned back to him. See? It's nothing but the tree. I told you. Now go to sleep. You got school in the morning. He was still a little startled from what I could see. But what could I do? I was just too damn tired. Again, I fell into the comfort of my bed. That's when I heard him cry. And I had just had enough.
Daddy!
Fine! I'll sleep in your bed with you. If you see any monsters, you just hold on to me tight, alright? I walked back into his room, pulled back his red blanket, and laid next to the kid. While I was laying, eyes closed, my mind started wandering. Didn't I buy white sheets for the bed? I looked at my son's slit throat and realized my mistake. That's when I heard the monster. Except it wasn't tapping on the glass. It was the footsteps from the open window. I couldn't help but laugh. How didn't I realize? I had no trees in my yard. Story was by Legend with a double D. Legended.
Why I do not sleep.
Mom and Dad keep asking why I won't sleep. It's colic, they say. Out of the murky darkness of my bedroom, I wail, calling them to my side, desperate to make them understand me. They come, reluctantly, with exhaustion tugging on the skin beneath their eyes and dyeing it a dark purple. Muttering in exasperation, they lift me from my crib, and I briefly have hope they will understand. But I'm always disappointed when they place a bottle to my lips or try to soothe me in the rocking chair. I try to point to my window, the source that feeds my ever fear-growing mind, but they never look. There is so much I would say if only I could form the words. He says that it's futile of me to try to warn Mom and Dad. By the time I'm able to speak, he will have melted back into the shadows, and I won't remember a thing. I am helpless, unable to do anything for myself. I'm at his mercy, he says, and the flicker of the flame that is my life could extinguish at any moment. Suddenly. Most of us live on and grow up with no memories of our terrifying infancy. Some, however, are not so lucky and are snuffed out. He never leaves any evidence behind. It always looks like an accident or pre-existing illnesses, leaving him free to move on to the next one. He promises, I'll forget all of this. It's inevitable, he insists, the image seared into my eyes. The ghastly horrors of his face will fade from my memory soon enough, but I don't understand how I could ever forget him. The way his nails scrape across the glass of my window before he opens it and steps into my room. The way his dark eyes swirl with malevolence and a pitch of mischief. The way his moist, hot breath buffets me as I try to sleep. The way his long, greasy, unkempt hair brushes across my face as he leans into my crib. He says that Mom and Dad cannot see him, but I don't understand how they could miss such a looming, foul-smelling, ageless being such as this. How could they be so blind? But I suppose there is no use in asking these questions. They too were visited when they were young, yet they clearly do not remember. Was it the worries and cares of the world that shattered their fragile memories of their infancy? Or does the brain forget as a mean of preservation, for it cannot survive long while it houses the memory of him? Mom and Dad keep mistaking my incessant crying for colic, as if I could scream so loudly simply because of some discomfort. They are blind to the fear in my eyes, and deaf to the unearthly tremor in his unholy laugh. So they place me back in my crib, shutting the lights off. I hear the footsteps fade down the hallway. I'm truly alone with him in his enveloping presence, and they keep asking why I cannot sleep. This story was credited to Ella Ann.
Dear Diary.
2 a.m. I can't seem to sleep tonight, and writing has always calmed me down. Today's been quite an odd day. It's been very quiet. Nobody seems to want to talk today. Nobody seems to want to smile. I felt different from them. I felt happy. As for why, I'm not sure. I seemed to get happier the more I saw them sad. But that's probably my mind making things up this late at night. I'm not an evil person. I just want to go to sleep. 3 a.m. I still can't go to sleep. All I can do is seem to think of all the people I saw today. All I seem to do is think of all the things I did today. All I seem to do is think about all the sadness. As for why, I'm not sure. I'm not an evil person. I just want to go to sleep. 4 a.m. I can't sleep. I'm so tired, but I'm so awake. I wish somebody was here to tuck me in or keep me safe. My thoughts are wandering so far that I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to find them again. I feel so different. I feel like I might have caused everybody to be sad today. I feel like I might have done something wrong today. I feel like I might have ended someone's lives today. As for why, I'm not sure. I'm not an evil person. I just want to sleep. 5 a.m. I don't want to sleep anymore. I looked in the mirror. I don't want to have to wake up ever again. I looked in the mirror. I'm afraid I may have scared people today. I looked in the mirror. I'm afraid I may have been a monster today. I looked in the mirror, and nothing was different. I looked in the mirror, and nothing was the same. I'm afraid of myself. As for why, I'm not sure. I'm not an evil person. I just want to die. 6 a.m. I can't seem to die. I feel like all I can do is write. I feel like all I can do is breathe. I feel like all I can do is live. I can't seem to die. But what's the point in living? What's the point in sleeping? What's the point in waking? I can't seem to die. As for why, I'm not sure. I'm not an evil person. I just want death. 7 a.m. Every word I write seems to give me more life, and I can't help but take it. I can't imagine how I'm living, but the words keep me alive. I can't imagine how I'm happy, but the words give me strength. I can't imagine how you're still reading. It's you that keeps me alive. can't imagine how you're feeling. Your death brings me life. You can't imagine how I'm feeling. I feel so alive. You can't imagine yourself living. You just want to die. As for why, I'm not sure. I'm not an evil person. All I want is to live. All I want is you to die. Dear Diary. And the credit for this goes to Sage.
A strange device.
My name is Erica Stanton. You need to understand why I'm posting this. The following are replicas of two posts that a friend of mine by the name of Alex Garvey made on the comics forum we both spend time on together. The posts were made in one of the general chat sections of the site. Both posts were swiftly taken down soon after they had been posted. I was in the process of replying to the second when it was taken down so I could copy and paste the whole text, which I decided to do given how strange it was. The first two lines are from the first post as best as I remember them. The wording may not be exactly right, but it's as close as I can get it. I need to write this down. I need to write this down before it. There is a gap of 4 hours between this post and the next. It happened again. I don't even remember hitting the button to submit the first post. The gaps in my memory are getting worse. It all started with my friend's husband. Elena had been married to Nolan for a while, since before I met her, in fact. They were both the nicest people you could hope to meet. Though Nolan was a little shy around new people, kept to himself mostly, didn't talk much, but when you got to know him, you saw that he had a good heart. Would always make time to do little acts of kindness for people, even those he didn't know. Whenever he passed any homeless on the street, he would always give them a few bucks, always happy to be the first to offer a ride home to friends who needed it, and to be the designated driver when we were having a few drinks, that kind of thing. Anyway, one day while I was talking to Elena, she told me that Nolan had started acting weird ever since he brought that ugly thing home, she said. Now, this kind of piqued my curiosity, so I asked her what she was talking about. She explained that about 2 weeks previously, Nolan had come home after a long day at the office with something under his arm that she'd never seen before. It had looked, she said, like a laptop, but a laptop that had been partially dismantled, taken apart in random sections, and there were various extra bits that didn't seem to do anything, wires and things plugged into it that she didn't recognize. She'd asked about it, and he simply replied that it was for work. Nolan worked in computer programming, so this seemed like a reasonable enough explanation, and she'd not thought of it much until a few days later. That was when she came home from shopping to find him just sat at the thing, staring at a bright blue screen. Occasionally, he would type a few things into it, just gibberish as far as she could tell. Random letters and numbers in no real sequence. Then he'd stare at the screen until a line of the same would appear in reply, which she guessed must mean it was connected to the net. Except that she noticed later that day, when Nolan was still typing away, that the modem was switched off. She told me that this had been going on for a while now, and that whenever she tried to talk to Nolan about it, he just looked confused for a few moments, like he generally didn't even know what she was referring to when she asked about the device. Then would go back to saying that it was for work and wouldn't talk about it anymore. This sounded seriously strange to me, so I asked her if she would be able to snap a pic of the screen while he was typing using her iPhone or something and then send it to me. I told her how it sounded almost like Nolan and whoever he was talking to were communicating in some sort of code, and that a friend of mine was kind of a genius at cracking those things. She agreed, clearly concerned about her husband. She told me that he had been increasingly distant a lot of the time, followed by moments when he was almost too outgoing. Not the usual shy man she knew. She looked genuinely worried about him, so I got the feeling that this wasn't just someone making a deal over nothing, and that there might be something wrong here. We got a photo of the screen with the line of code on it a few days later, and I and my friend Jack got to work on trying to decipher it. Well, he did most of the work, to be honest. Okay, all of the work, but I supervised. It took him a while, but finally he figured it out. What he found didn't really make much sense to me. Nolan's line of code read, "waiting." The reply from whoever he was talking to read, "wear only white for the remainder of the day." Then there was an acknowledged from Nolan, and then it was it. When I told Elena about this, she seemed even more unsettled by the whole thing. She told me that soon after she'd taken that picture, Nolan had indeed gotten up, gone to the bedroom, and changed into an all-white outfit. White shoes, socks, pants, and a shirt with a white belt. He normally preferred darker colors, black and gray mostly, so she'd taken note of it as being odd. And odder still was that she honestly couldn't remember seeing that outfit he was wearing in their cupboard at any point before. This went on for a while. Nolan would act oddly, behaving or speaking in ways that weren't normal for him. He would often seem distant or distracted and started coming home late more and more often. At one point he came home with cuts all over his hands like scratch marks of some kind. He didn't seem to know how he'd gotten them. Something else that troubled her was the way that the device never seemed to run out of power. Over the weekend, it would be on 24/7, but it was never plugged in to charge. It simply kept on running throughout the day, whatever battery it ran on, never running out of juice. And no matter what room of the house he was in, when the line of code appeared on the screen, Nolan would come running like Pavlov's dog at the sound of the bell. It was a week later that Elena called me in tears and sounding frantic. She told me that Nolan had disappeared. She'd woken up in the middle of the night and he had been gone. She tried his cell phone and there had been no answer. She called the office, their friends, his relatives, her relatives, nothing. She called the police, but they said that not enough time had passed to report him as missing. And she said that when she'd come down into the room, that damn thing had been sat open on the table, the blue screen casting its dim light against the sofa that looked like somebody had been sitting in it until recently. I and Jack offered to take a look at the device to try to see if there was anything on there that could give some hint as to what the hell was going on here. She was so desperate for some clue, any clue as to what had happened to Nolan, that she agreed and we picked it up from her place the next day. The police wouldn't do anything until he had been missing for a few days anyway, so we figured we would take a crack at it, and if we could find anything, we'd hand it over to them when they began officially searching for Nolan. We hadn't come back before that, of course. We found that every interaction between Nolan and whoever he had been talking to was viewable simply by hitting the up key and scrolling up through the various lines of code. When it finally wouldn't go up any further, we figured that this was the start or as close to it as possible, and so Jack got to work translating while I wrote down what he said. I didn't know what we were going to find. I don't think there was any way either of us could have guessed. The first message was simple. It read, "Hello, Nolan. Please stand by." It then said, "When asked about this device, you are only to say that it is for work. We shall supply further instruction if necessary." The next one was presumably from its unknown contact as well. It read, "Eat only vegetables today." Another instruction. Jack went on to translate the next. Nolan would indicate that he was at the device with a simple "I am here," and then an order would follow. Slow down by 5 miles at the first green light you see after work. Kiss your wife only on the cheek for the next 24 hours. Do not smile until told otherwise. I jotted them down, wondering what on earth all this was. Nolan had been having some kind of kinky master-slave affair behind his wife's back. Was this some part of some really weird reality show he'd been taking part in? Some kind of hidden camera stunt? What the hell was all of this? Then Jack went quiet. He swallowed hard and he read the next instruction. Eat a child's skin. I turned to look at him, and at this point I was fucking terrified. This had been creeping me out the more we had gone on, and I genuinely thought and hoped that this had been him messing with me. I even said, "You made that one up," and I wanted to be in a casual, joking kind of way. It came out more like I was pleading with him, begging him to tell me that he had made it up. From the look on his face, either he hadn't or he was a much better actor than I had ever thought he was. The next instructions we translated were more mundane nonsense. Orders about what to wear, how fast to walk, what route to take to work, what to eat. I almost made myself believe that that one had been a mistranslation that Jack had gotten wrong. Then he read the next one.
Remove the eyes and tongue of the first homeless man you see today.
Now, I'm pretty sure most people would be creeped out by that, but me? I wasn't just unsettled, I was feeling physically sick, because I could remember reading this news story not long ago about a brutal slaying of a man believed to be one of the various homeless that occupied the city. He had been found in a shop doorway in a pool of blood with his eyes gouged out and his tongue removed. The remaining instructions were mostly more everyday ones, not that it mattered at this point. Some morbid curiosity made us press through though. And scattered throughout were ones like strike the second stray animal you see before 6 p.m. and destroy the third vending machine that you walk past. Then came the final line of text. It simply read, "We are coming. Wait outside for collection." And then it stopped. That was the last message that Nolan had received the night he vanished from his home. Jack and I had no goddamn idea what to do with all this. This hadn't answered our questions. It had raised even more. What the hell was this thing? Who was Nolan talking to? Was this some kind of sick joke? Some kind of ridiculous, elaborate prank that he had pulled on us? Jack said that he had to get a drink and headed to the fridge. While he grabbed us some beers, I glanced at the device, staring at the glowing blue screen. And that's when I noticed all the text that had been there before had vanished, just gone, leaving the screen completely empty. A new line of code appeared, and somehow, and I have no idea how, I could read it. "Hello, Alex. Please stand by." That was 3 weeks ago. Jack has just disappeared off the face of the earth, and I don't know what scares me more. That I don't know what happened to him, or that I think some part of me does. I know that I get instructions from that thing regularly. I have whole hours, even days of my life that are just one big blank where I can't remember a single damn thing that I've done. I've got bruises and scratches all over me. I come home some nights and I'm wearing different clothes than what I left in, and my old clothes are gone. There are faint stains in the boot of my car and a horrible smell. My head hurts all the time. When I can't sleep, I see something. When I wake up, I can't remember what, but I know it was bad. My body feels different. Everything feels wrong. Everything feels strange, I think. The post ended here. I've not heard or seen from Alex since then. I don't know where he is, but I think I'm going to find out. Remember how I told you that it was important for you to know my name? I went to Alex's apartment about a week after we lost all contact. The door was unlocked, and in his bedroom on the desk was what looked like a weird laptop with a blue screen. 2 new lines of text appeared on it, written in the code I shouldn't have been able to read. "Hello, Erica. Please stand by."
Credit goes to Alice Thompson.
I'm downstairs.
The clock struck midnight. I was on my laptop in my bedroom, browsing through YouTube videos. However, my browsing stopped when my phone vibrated. I saw that I received a text from my friend Ben. "Hey man, I'm outside by the back door. Can you let me in?" I knew he was lying. For the last few weekends, he had been messing with me. One weekend he told me he was parked in my cul-de-sac when in reality he was in his bedroom. The following weekend, he told me he was coming over to hang out. When I came outside to greet him in his car, he floored it out of my neighborhood. I wasn't gonna let him get me this time. I sent a reply back. "I know you're messing with me again." He immediately replied back, "No, I'm being serious. This time, I'm by the back door." Nice try. I know you're not there. I placed my phone down and continued my search. About a minute later, my phone vibrated again. I'm downstairs. "Ben, you can't troll me 3 weekends in a row. However, I'll give you an A for effort." I placed my phone face down again. I wasn't going to play his little game. As I was about to continue my search, I started to hear something from the deafening silence of my dark house. I faced the dark doorway behind me and listened closely. It sounded like footsteps. Silent footsteps walking around downstairs. It was nerve-wracking. I couldn't believe it. Was my mind tricking me, or was Ben actually in my house? I grabbed my phone. "Are you joking with me, man?" I continued to listen as my phone vibrated again. "No, I told you I was downstairs, but you didn't believe me." I was quite relieved that it was him, but I was pissed off that he broke into my house. I could hear him walking around downstairs. Still, as I waited for him to come into my bedroom, I grabbed my phone again. "Aren't you gonna come upstairs? I can hear you walking around downstairs. Just come up here already." I sent the message and waited for him to respond. I was starting getting a little annoyed after a minute of waiting. I got up from my bed and went to the doorway. I proceeded to shout downstairs, "Get your ass up here already! Stop fucking around!" I sat back on my bed as I began to hear him walk upstairs. Suddenly, my phone vibrated again. It was a text message from Ben. "You know I was fucking with you, right?" My heart dropped. As I looked up to the doorway, I see my killer smiling at me. Credit to Matthew Stacks.
The Static Man.
I always thought the old TV in my grandmother's attic was broken. It would never receive channels and only emit a hiss of static when you tried turning the dial. But last December, I discovered it wasn't broken at all. The first time I ever laid eyes on him, I figured I was only drunk. My cousins and I had snuck in, had a little bit of whiskey up into the attic after the Christmas party, challenging one another to turn the dial on that old TV that didn't work anymore. I recall leaning in too close, my forehead almost up against the glass, and that's when the static warped. I don't mean the image clarified, I mean the gray-white mist almost leaned towards me, as if the screen was attempting to breathe me in. And there, within the flicker, was the face of a man. Not clear, not complete, just a suggestion of a man's eyes. Wide and black, gazing back. Did you see that? I breathed. But when I turned back at my cousins, they were laughing at me, too distracted pouring shots to care. When I turned around again, the man's lips were moving, silent, engulfed by static. But could have sworn I could read his lips. I saw the word, soon. I did not return to the attic until months later, after Grandma had passed and my mother requested I assisted with cleaning the house. I was alone, the dust and that TV sitting in the dark nook like a grave marker. I said to myself, don't touch it. As I piled boxes and folded moth-eaten quilts, I continued to glance at it, pounding heart, half expecting the man to materialize again. I should have gone away. I turned it on instead. The static leapt into being an instant, brighter than I could ever remember, verging on blinding. In a matter of seconds, the same image coalesced, the soft shape of a man pressed against the screen. This time, I didn't even blink. His hand moved, fuzzy but unambiguous, and he touched it against the glass. I have no idea why I did it, but I raised my own hand and I mirrored it. The glass was ice cold. And then God help me, the static broke, just for a heartbeat, long enough for me to get a look at the face. He had no skin. Just muscles and teeth, eyes stretched too wide, his jaw unhinged. Although the TV had no sound, I could hear his voice in my head buzzing like bees in my skull.
Let me out.
That night I dreamed of him. It was again in the static, but the TV was missing. He was there instead, standing tall, dripping static as if it were water running off of him. With each step, black footprints appeared on the wood. I awoke screaming. I didn't sleep for 3 nights following. Each time I drifted off, I could hear the static, a persistent hiss against my eardrums. On the 4th night, my phone clicked on, automatically. No ringing, no apps, but pure static covering the screen. And in the static, weak, but clear as glass.
Closer.
In an attempt to remove the TV, I lugged it out to the dumpster at the back of the house, slicing my hand on the jagged edges of the screen as I dropped it in. But by the morning, it was back in the attic, parked in the same spot, dusted to perfection, like it had never been moved. That's when I understood it wasn't the television he lived in. It was the static. Any static. I tested it. Radios, old VHS tapes, the snow between the channels, he was always there, waiting. And he was getting clearer. 2 weeks ago, I woke up to see static creeping up the walls of my bedroom. Not light, not shadow, but actual static. Like my whole room had turned into a screen. And he stepped out. Not fully, but his torso melted into the wall. But his head was free, and his hands, skinless, wet fingers bending in ways they shouldn't, reached for me. I froze. Just as his hand brushed my ankle, the static vanished and he was gone. But he left a print. A hand-shaped burn blackened into my skin. I'm writing this tonight because the mark has spread. It began as a palm print. Now it's veins, black, and crawling, wriggling up my calf. My skin is parched and crackling. Flakes of static sometimes peel off of me when I scratch, fizzing before they reach the floor. And the worst part, I hear him when the house falls silent. Not only in the walls or the television, but in me, in my head, like my skull is a hollowed out antenna. He says he's nearly here, that the static isn't an entrance, it's an infection. And tonight, the TV came on its own. No one is home but me, and I can hear him scrolling through the channels, clicking closer. The walls are already humming. He's coming through. And the very last thing I'll ever say in case anyone ever reads this. Wait. Do you hear it too? I think sharing my story would make a difference, such as perhaps putting it into writing would cure the infection, lock him into words. But that was foolish. If anything, it's made it more powerful. The evening after I posted my entry, I dreamed again, but it didn't feel like a dream. I sat at my desk reading responses saying how creepy but phony my tale was. When the screen dimmed, all the words turned to static, and the responses altered. Dozens of usernames I didn't know, all typing the same thing.
Let him in.
The screen vibrated and the cursor started typing by itself.
You are mine.
When I awoke, my laptop remained on. The draft of my novel remained open, except for someone or something has made changes to it. My words were still intact, but interspersed among them were his, every so often in bold black uppercase.
Soon. Soon. Soon.
I erased them, saved the file, and rebooted the computer. But when I reopened the document, the words had grown. Pages of it. That single word repeated and repeated, like the static was typing through me. The infection is more severe now. Veins which began in my legs have burst all over my chest. Black streaks as if lightning runs beneath the skin. Sometimes they imbue themselves with an ethereal glow, a momentary flash, and when they do, the lights in the room shudder in symphony. I can't remain in the darkness any longer, for that's when he comes nearest. Each time the light goes out, or the electricity falters, I hear him take a step nearer to the surface. The static buzz begins low like bugs scurrying in the walls, and swells until it sounds like the shuddering of the air asunder. I watch his hands press against the cracks. Tonight I tried one more thing. If he's spreading from signal to signal, perhaps cutting myself off might be enough to put a stop to it. I took the TV off the plug, smashed my phone, ripped every cable out of the walls. I even flipped the breaker so the house was dead quiet. I felt relieved for an instant. Then I remembered. Silence is no longer silence, because the static remained inside me. I don't know how long I've been sitting in the dark now. My skin feels like it's infested with electricity. Every couple of minutes my sight fizzes out and I look through the static rather than my eyes. That's how I know he's nearly done. Because when the static gets me, I see him standing behind me, even clearer than ever, skinless, smiling too wide. And his voice, oh God, his voice is no longer in my head. It's whispering in my ear. If this is the last thing I type, I want someone to know. The static is not only him, it's a portal. And the more you stare at it, the more you hear, the bigger it gets. I think sharing my tale infected you as well. Wait, don't you hear it? That hiss in your speaker? That flicker on your screen? Don't turn around. Credit to Luis Mondejar. I want to go ahead and shout everybody out. Happy Halloween and fucking enjoy your shit.